different experience. So I'll go ahead and share that. So I grew up in a Christian church. I grew up in a Baptist church. I was in church every single Sunday, every Wednesday, Bible class, like all the way up until high school. I was there, all the time. But I never experienced the power of God. And so I remember, people would talk about God, and I found it really hard to have a conversation. I would kind of skirt around the topic a little bit, because it's like, I know God. I say I'm a Christian, but I don't have a relationship with God. So it was really hard for me to be able to relate to people that talked about God. And I just like there was just something in me all the time. It's like, you meet these people and they're just like God all the time, and it's like, how can you be like that? Like, this is boring. Like, the Bible is boring, God is boring, but I know I'm supposed to read the Bible, but how can I read the Bible because it's boring? And so that's kind of how I lived, my whole life. I consider myself, kind of a closet Christian. I never went out and shared my faith. I was very timid growing up. I was very timid. I was very quiet. The word bold was probably the last word someone would use to describe me. So a little bit of my story. So it was about 2 years ago. I feel like back in 2020, I really encountered God for the first time, and I think it was Rachel. I just felt it. I knew she was praying for me, because she would try and talk to me about God all the time, and it's like, I tried to have a conversation, but I could not have a conversation with her. And so she knew, I was struggling a little bit. She kept talking about this relationship with God, and it's like, okay, like, I just didn't know what to say. So with that being said, 2020, I felt God touch me. I had seen a testimony from John Ramirez, incredible if you have not seen that. But God really, he touched me, and then I saw that testimony. Ever since, that moment, it was just like a small flame that it just kept growing and growing. And it wasn't until maybe about 6 months ago, I was in my apartment. I was all by myself, and I had started to, hear about these things. I was like, okay, hearing, there's power to God, the baptism of the Holy Spirit, but I still had never really received the true power of God. And so I, remember I had been hearing a lot about speaking in tongues, and, just open up your mouth, basically, and just like let Jesus, take hold of your tongue and start talking. And so I did that, and it was at that moment. It was probably the best day of my life. I will never forget it. But I felt the Spirit of God come upon me. I felt His power. And so that's when we're talking about here, we're talking about the Bible. There's 2 baptisms of the Holy Spirit. It's because we've received that. We're not just reading something and telling you. We're here sharing our personal experiences with you, and we're telling that. So ever since that happened, there's been a spiritual boldness that's come inside me that I never had before, and I've been just so on fire for God, and it's that flame that keeps burning. And I will say, once you receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit, it's kind of like, it's like being in love, there's that honeymoon phase, but after that, you have a responsibility to maintain that. You have to choose to love, and you have to keep that flame burning.
Absolutely. And